Hello, writers. I'm Josiane Fortin, and today I'm interviewing Contel Bradford. Contel is the self published author of so many books, he's losing count. We'll say almost 10 books. So, thank you so much for being on the show, and please tell us a little bit about you.
It's my pleasure. I'm a self-published author. I've been writing for nearly 20 years. I specialize in erotica and urban fiction, and I also do freelance writing for various companies on the internet. I write IT security articles, web hosting, backup and business continuity, very boring topics like that. But yeah, so I write a variety of things. But my passion is writing fiction. So that's where I'm at.
It's the first time I talk to someone who writes erotica, so I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about that. I'm so curious to know more. So, why did you decide to write in that genre?
I don't know. I started off in urban fiction, but when I got to the romance and sex scenes, I don't know, something about that stuck with me. So I decided to branch out and focus more on that because the response I got from those particular scenes was very positive. So just decided to hone in on that. I saw I was a market for it and just decided to go for it. I don't know. I'm kind of a sensual person, I guess, so kind of appealed to me.
It's so interesting because when I write, I'm always unsure about the sex scenes. Like, should I include them? Should I just like keep it off? Like, and just be really like PG-13. And so it makes me shy to write about sex. So you're not shy at all to talk about it?
Oh, I'm definitely not shy in that regard, not at all. I tend to be very graphic when it comes to that, so I guess that's what helped me transition to the erotica pretty easy because those parts was very graphic. Now it is hard to write about it sometimes. I will say it takes me longer to write those things, but overall I don't have a difficult time getting into it and going into detail about those particular scenes.
And when you write those scenes, like, are you thinking, oh, my mother will read this? Or I don't know if you have
Uh,
kids, but maybe your kids could read it someday. So do you think about that? I guess you
I,
shouldn't
I
think about that.
I do think about that honestly. Like when I post stuff about my books on Facebook, sometimes I will block my mother from the post, and I'll say this is not for female family members. So yes, I do keep that kind of stuff in mind. Yes, but yeah.
And so you've written so many books. Where do you get your inspiration?
I'm inspired by everything in life. I'm inspired by everything I read. You know, I read a lot of books, so I take a little something from everything I read and watch a lot of movies. When I go on vacation, I'm inspired by the things I see. Conversations with people I talk to. I'm always jotting notes in my mind. So take a little inspiration from everywhere.
And when you wrote the first book, what made you decide to start writing? Because that's a big step to write the first one. So,
Yeah.
what state of mind were you in?
Well, I have various stages with my writing journey. I started writing at a very early age. I was like in middle school, probably earlier than that. Actually, I just wrote short stories for my own personal amusement, and it wasn't something I took serious. Even though I wrote my first book at like 15 years old, my first actual manuscript, I didn't really do nothing with it. I didn't start taking it serious until I was about 23 years old. Then I tried to self-publish myself. I actually put my own book together physically, like printed out the pages and glued them together. It was all crazy looking, but so it was various stages, but I always knew from a very young age that writing was a talent. It was just when I decided to pursue it seriously, that was like the long journey before realizing like this is something I really need to do and actually make this my career. So it's been a
And
long journey. I've been writing professionally. I started writing freelance stuff in like 2007, so it's been like 14 years doing that. But my first official book probably came out about 15, 16 years ago.
And
That's
you've been
quite the
doing
long
this
ride.
for a while. Like, are you getting better at productivity, like word count? Do you get faster at writing?
Well, I can write very fast, but it depends on what I'm doing because I'm always multitasking. I tend to work on like three projects at a time. So if I get stuck on one, I will jump to another one. So it's kind of hard to say how long it took me to write a particular book because I'm always hopping back and forth between one or another. And I'm always writing for clients. So it's tough to say, but yes, I do write a lot faster, and my writing is a lot more technical. I've come a long way because I read some of my old stuff, and it's embarrassing to read my first books and the books I'm writing now. So yes, I have improved quite a bit. Thanks in large part to writing for people online. I had exposure to a lot of different styles, so I picked up a lot over these years.
Yeah, that's good. So obviously you've been learning a lot since you've written so many books and also freelancing. And I'd like to know, like, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to write their very first book?
My advice would be understand that writing a book is the easy part. The most difficult part is actually marketing that book and selling it, getting it into people's hands and getting your name out there, establishing your brand. That's something I'm still struggling with. So get the book done. That's a very important part. But once you understand that, you need to take some time to learn how to market yourself properly because that's the
What would
biggest
you
struggle.
tell someone like starting out? What should they do? Like, what has been working for you in terms of promoting your books and promoting yourself as a writer?
It's hard to say because I started out before the internet was really big, so I had a lot of experience with the traditional way of marketing books. I had a spot at a flea market. I used to go to book expos and a lot of face-to-face interactions, and I actually had a lot more success doing that than what I'm doing now, which is entirely digital. I only sell my ebooks now, so while it's a lot more affordable to do that, I haven't had the same measure of success marketing my books. So if you can do both traditional and digital, I would say do that because while a lot of people do read ebooks, listen to audio books, there's still a market for traditional paperbacks and hardcovers. So you can
I don't
cover
know
both.
what's
I
the
would do
sorry. I don't know what's the state of the pandemic in your country right now. Where are you in the
them. I
US?
am in Detroit, Michigan, and yes, we are partially locked down. So
Okay, and do
selling
you feel
hand to
that
hand will
after,
probably be
sorry, I'm
difficult.
sorry.
That's okay.
Do you feel that after the lockdown, maybe once book fairs get back started again, do you feel like it would be successful again? Is that a strategy that you want to keep using?
It's something I might have to consider. I said I was going to go entirely digital just because it was cheaper, but I don't know. I might go back to selling physical copies one day once I can get a strategy down, find out how I want to approach it. I don't live in the same area I did back when I was selling books on the streets. I live in like a suburban area that's kind of far away from everything, so I wouldn't have the same access I did before. But I'm sure it can be done, so I just have to game plan it and see how to attack it properly.
Yeah, right. Trying things and see what works.
Right.
And we talked about marketing, and my question was, what's the hardest thing about becoming a self published author? So I guess it goes back to saying, like, promoting your book is a challenge. And anything that you found challenging about being a self published author, maybe you have tips to help people out.
Um, Aside from the marketing aspect, I would say probably finding somebody you can trust to handle all the components of putting together a book. Like you got so many things you might take for granted, like your book cover design, things like editing and proofreading, which is very important. It can also be expensive. So just the little things that you might overlook that goes beyond just writing the book that That's at the end of the day, it's just as important. So you have to get out a little checklist and knock off these things that you need to do to get it done. And that can be challenging as well.
Yeah, right. And I'd like to know, do you have tips on getting more reviews on Amazon?
Any more reviews on Amazon? That's something I'm struggling with at this very moment. But I know a lot of authors are willing to do book exchanges where I'll buy your book, you buy mine, I'll review your book, you review mine. But you have to be very careful with that because Amazon is very picky. And if they think you're trying to manipulate the review system, they will like ban your reviews and they might ban your book. So have to be careful with that. But there are a lot of readers who do reviews. They promote their review business. You just have to take the time and do the research and find them. You might have to wait a while, be on a waiting list, but if you gift them a free copy of your book, a lot of people will be willing to read it. It's all about doing the research, having a little patience.
And currently, what novel are you working on? Are you working on multiple books at the same time?
I am. I just had a book released about a month ago. It's called The Ghetto is Trying to Kill Me. It's one of my very first stories that I rewrote pretty much from scratch because when I wrote it back in the days, it was very raw and unpolished. So I had to do it over, got it professionally edited. And then I just finished another book, which is the sequel to the Fetish Dictionary, which is erotica, pretty hardcore stuff. I just finished the final draft on that, so that should be ready within the next month. And I just started writing the book I wrote for the very first time when I was 15 years old. It's about elves and vampires. It's like a real left turn from what I'm normally used to writing. So it's going to be a challenge, but I'm also very excited to start writing that. And finally, I do visual novels. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. A visual novel was like a comic book and those pick a path books that they had that were popular back in the day where you get to a certain point and you can choose what the story does next. It's kind of like that combined together in the app where you have like choices the reader can make. There's music, there's sound effects. It's like an interactive book basically. So I
Okay,
do
but
those too. They're not very well known, but I think they're pretty cool, and I think they will eventually take off. So I do those as well.
yeah, it sounds really cool. And I'm curious to know, like, how does that work? What app? Like, I want to know all the details. Do you sell that on Amazon? How do you, like, how do you?
Visual novels, they're technically defined as games, so they're more likely to be found on sites where you will buy video games like Steam and itch.io because they run on your PC and on your mobile device. So they're like an app. They're like a software program basically, but they read like a book. So yeah, they're also available on well the more well known versions you can buy them for your PlayStation or Xbox. They're very popular in Japan, but they're not as popular here in the States. But I think it's a very cool concept that will eventually catch on. So I'm trying to get on that while I can. So I personally think it's a very fun way to tell a story. So,
Yeah, it sounds awesome. And do you code?
no, I don't.
Okay, so
No.
who's helping you on that project?
I'm doing it all by myself actually. I have the software, the right software that makes it easier for you to do it without coding. But yes, if you know how to code, you can do even more with it. I'm just doing the basic bare bones stuff, but they have coding features where you can make like 3D animation features and all this cool stuff. That's another challenging part. I don't trust people, and so I do everything myself, which is kind of like a down my biggest downfall. I'm such a loner, but I'm trying and I'm getting there. So we'll
Yeah,
see how it
well,
works out.
on one side, it's like being a loner, but on the other side, you want to keep control of your creativity and what you're putting out there. So I do understand. Uh, why you would want to do it on your own. And
Yeah.
so, what is the software you're using if people want to look it up and try this experience too? What is it?
I'm using two different software programs to make visual novels. The first one is called Tyranno Builder. It's probably the easiest, most user friendly software you can find for this type of stuff. I bought it on Steam, which is where you buy the video games for PCs. It was like $15. I used that for my first visual novel. For the second one that I'm just completing now, I'm using Cloud Novel. It's a cloud based version of the same type of software. Pretty much the same features, but it's just a different way to go about it. This software is free for the basic features, but if you want to pay for the more advanced stuff, more tools and more features and stuff like that, you can pay like $15 a month to use it. So it's pretty cool. I'm gonna do a review on both of those programs once I'm done with my second visual novel, so people can see how they work and stuff like that.
So, is the first one on sale right now?
Yes, the first one is called The Raid. It's like a horror story. It's actually based on a short story I wrote a few years back. That one is available on itch.io.
Okay. Awesome. I want you to share all those links with me, so I make sure to add them to the show notes. And also, if people want to know more about you, your website, where can they find you?
The best place to find me is probably my author site. That is countcrewpublications.com. I also have a freelance site for my freelance business. That's contelbradford.com. They're kind of like interconnected. You can get to one from the other, but these days, since I'm focusing more on my books, my author site is probably the best place to find it. And of course, you can find all my ebooks on Amazon and Smashwords.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for your time and the opportunity.